Hi there, and welcome back to the HQ. Today, we are going to be reacting to the French Revolution, Oversimplified, Part 2. Where we last left off, the king had just been seriously downgraded to serving alongside a revolutionary government instead of just being a king miles away from his subjects, ignoring all the poor people. And Marie Antoinette telling them to eat cake and Taco Bell Crunchwrap Supremes. I'm sure this is only going to get better from here. I'm sure everything's going to be just fine. I'm sure. You know, all the heads on pikes certainly weren't a bad omen. So let's just jump right in and see how bad this is going to get, you know. Oh, that's a
King
cannon
Louis
fire.
and his family were now in the Tuileries Palace in Paris, where for the next couple of years, he watched as the revolutionary government began to strip away his power. And fearing
Good
for
on
his
them.
safety, he had to stay on their good side. Hey, look who it is. It's my favorite revolutionaries. Yep, I'm your #1 fan. What
I'm
can I do
sure
for
you are.
Hey, King Louis.
I'm sure
So
you
we made
are.
a few decisions. First, all of your friends in the nobility are going to have to pay taxes the same as everyone else.
As they
Great
should.
idea. I love it. And as a side note, the tax money can no longer pay for all your lavish parties.
Yeah, like, frankly, like, taxing, like, you know, I'm going to say it now, tax the rich, because you could solve a lot more problems if you do that. And don't use tax money for lavish parties and throwing stuff for all your friends. And maybe the country wouldn't be in such financial debt that you caused a revolution in the first place.
Right. I hate those parties. They're so awkward. And also, we're taking away your Porsche. Oh, come on! I mean, yay. The king continually found demand after demand being made of him to prove his support for the revolution. On one occasion, a mob would invade the palace and demand he wear the revolutionary bonnet. This is the face of a man who is definitely pretending he wants to wear that bonnet.
Imagine people just break into your house and be like, put this beanie on or we're going to kill you. Like, god damn. They're just bullying this man, which is funny because he is a king and therefore he is open to be made fun of. Because make fun of royalty at any chance you get.
Now around here, I want to mention that one thing King Louis had a problem with was people constantly raiding his palace. But one thing he didn't have a problem with was raiding noobs on this video's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends is a brand new collection
why
of
raid
VTubers with
why
amazing
raid your
3D
local
graphics, an
monarch
awesome
when you
storyline,
can
and just
raid the
awesome.
shadows with
There's
legends?
over 400 champions for you to collect and customize. And crazy battles and events that will get you hooked immediately. You can
Oh,
follow
I'm
me in the game
sure.
under the nickname OverSimplified. And if you're quick enough and cool enough, you can join my clan. Go to the video description, click on the
Yeah, I'm
special
sure
links,
you
and
play
you'll
the game
instantly get
religiously.
50,000 silver
I'm sure
and
it's
a
just
free
not like a
epic
social
champion
media
as
manager
part of the
playing
new
it.
player program.
I'm
So
sure.
start your journey. Good luck, and I'll see you there. Now, where was I? Oh yeah, seeing the situation.
I mean, I would take a Raid Shadow Legends sponsorship too if it meant I'd get a fat bag. Like if I could get enough money to pay my mortgage off for the next 6 months, I'd totally take a Raid Shadow Legends ad. Like, goddamn, give me that, yo, Raid, call me up. Give me that money.
Situation rapidly turning against him, the king decided it might be a good idea to leave France and mount a campaign to retake his country from abroad.
Is that
Luckily
such
for
a good
him,
idea?
He was married to an Austrian, so on the night of June 20th,
I don't think it's a good idea to try to like make a campaign to retake your country from outside the country, because that just shows that you are abandoning your country to the masses.
1791, the king and his family disguised themselves as servants and attempted to flee to the Austrian Netherlands. The royal carriage made a stop in the town of Varennes, and the postmaster there was like, "Hey guys, what's up?"
If you're going to disguise yourself as peasants, why are you going to take the royal carriage? Like, at that point, you should just take, like, a rinky-dink one, like a taxi carriage, and just kind of, like, book it that way. With, like, a few, like, disguised soldiers as guardsmen or something.
Where are you off to? We are but a collection of inconspicuous servants heading for the border for no particular reason at all. Say, you, the fat one, you look kind of familiar. Aren't you the king? Nope. Let me see your passport. It says here you're
The king's
King
passport.
Louis the 16th. Nope, not me.
You're telling me the king couldn't just
Take him away,
forge
boys.
a
The king was
passport?
promptly returned to Paris, But now, the jig was up. His lack of support for the revolution was clear to all, and many considered him a straight-up traitor who tried to abandon his people.
Yeah, I mean, considering the context, that's valid.
Completely reduced his powers to that of a simple figurehead, a constitutional monarch. However,
as it should, really.
Those in the
it is like, I don't like the royalty because they get way too much, like, you know, like the British monarchy, they get way too much special treatment because, oh, they're the British monarchy. And it's like, yeah, it's like a constitutional monarchy system definitely works. And like just keeping him around as like a figurehead where they have no real power. But they do have power because they're still the monarchy. Like at that point, you might as well just dissolve the monarchy and save all the money that you spend funding their lifestyle. And put that money where it should be going, to the people. Like, it's not that hard of a concept to understand, folks.
Jacobin Club were outraged that the king wasn't to be removed entirely. So a month later, these radicals staged a protest on the Champ de Mars, calling for the king's removal. The government of Paris feared an insurrection was mounting. And they
an insurrection to the insurrection?
The confrontation escalated and resulted in the Revolutionary National Guard firing on a crowd of revolutionaries. It was a massacre. The incident exposed a deep division within the Brotherhood of the Revolution. On one side, the moderates who wanted to keep the king as a figurehead. On the other,
only the French could somehow, like, revolt against a revolution.
These radicals received a wave of support. And speaking of rolling heads, one form of equality the revolution introduced was equality in execution. This meant no more torturous drawing and quartering, no more inhumane hanging. They wanted all criminals, regardless of economic status, to receive the same penalty, a quick and painless one.
Well, you know, that's certainly some form of equality. They couldn't give women equality, but they can give you equality in death at least.
Luckily, a man by the name of Dr. Joseph Guillotine had
that's a name.
A heavy blade
that's
that
a name.
Like thunder. The head flies off, blood spurts, and the man is no more. The guillotine, otherwise known as the National Razor. The guillotine made its debut in 1791 as the new form of execution. The writings of Marat and others continued to call for the execution of anyone suspected of working against the revolution. For him, this included some members of the clergy and nobility who had previously benefited from the cruel system of inequality that existed before the revolution.
Yeah, that is valid. I mean, the clergy and nobility were the ones constantly voting to put people down in the first place. So I feel like they'd probably be the first ones to face the blade whenever that came.
In many parts of the countryside, local lords had found themselves become a target. Sire, the peasants, they're revolting. Oh, come on, that's a bit harsh. Sure, they smell a bit, but I wouldn't say they're revolting. Oh, yes, I see what you mean. Increasingly, these French aristocrats began fleeing France to find solitude in other parts of Europe. And once again, fear began to take hold. The privileged classes of these foreign nations didn't like what they were seeing because they feared revolutionary ideas may spread to their own lands.
As they should. Because again, we don't need monarchies.
The National Assembly, actually now the Legislative Assembly, feared that these nations may decide to attack. Then why don't we attack them first? No, you idiots, we are definitely not ready for war yet.
That's not a good idea.
Did somebody say something? France declared war on Austria in April 1792 and immediately got pummeled. It also didn't help that Austria's ally Prussia joined in the fighting. The Prussian Duke of Brunswick posted a letter warning the revolutionaries that if anything happened to the king, he would burn Paris to the ground. The Duke's letter proved to be a massive success in inspiring the people of Paris to do the exact opposite of what he intended. They were enraged by the threat.
They're calling his bluff.
1792, the tension in the city exploded, and a mob stormed the king's palace. Fighting broke out between the revolutionaries and the king's Swiss guard, with casualties in the hundreds. King Louis fled and took refuge in the chamber of the Legislative Assembly, where Robespierre and his radical Jacobins were gaining ever more power. Given the
that's not good.
The chamber decided to hold a vote, and in what some considered to be a second revolution, it was decided to suspend the monarchy entirely. King Louis XVI was now just plain old Louis.
Oh, good. Like, at that point, like, I feel like the suspension of the monarchy itself should have just been something they'd done a lot earlier. And just, like, you know, suspend him from his royal position. Like, you know, let him still wear his fancy clothes and just be a dick. But, like, you know, keep him out of power. And use the legislation to make sure that the nobles and the clergy contribute their fair share to society.
And he was sent to a prison cell where an eye could be kept on him. A month later, the newly established National Convention officially declared
they just
the
keep
French Republic, and
they just
society
keep
underwent a massive
changing their
change.
name.
Enlightened ideas of democracy and equality were being implemented, but very quickly, these ideas seemed to become secondary to fear, paranoia, and a thirst for blood. The new republic began
As it
working
does
to
happen.
violently remove any semblance of the old royalist regime. The church became a prime target. Priests who refused to take an oath to the revolution were deported or arrested. A new state-sponsored atheistic religion named the Cult of Reason was created as a replacement for the Catholic Church.
Oh, that's just gonna turn out great, isn't it?
Notre Dame, along with many other churches, had their religious treasures destroyed and were converted to temples of reason. Even the Christian calendar didn't survive, as a brand new revolutionary calendar was soon.
French Republican calendar, 100 seconds per minute, 100 minutes per hour, 10 hours a day, an entirely new set of months. I don't think this is going to track. I don't think this tracks. I don't think the math is mathing, folks. I'm not going to sit here and do the math because I don't have the time for that. But I don't think the math is mathing. Let me know in the comments below if the math do indeed math, though.
Introduced. Hey, honey, I'm home. Yeah, whatever, jerk. Whoa, what's wrong with you? You forgot. Forgot what? Everything. This entire year. My birthday was on the 3rd of Germinal, our anniversary was the 12th of Thermidor, and you promised that in Frimaire, we'd go on a romantic weekend trip to Venice. No, I said we'd do that in December. December hasn't been a thing for years. The government of Paris, now under the control of the radical Sans-Culottes, began rounding up suspected enemies of the revolution and sending them to prison in the thousands.
Jesus.
Naturally, a large number of those arrested were members of the clergy and aristocracy.
Yeah,
as France's
as one would expect.
To close in, panic spread. Georges Danton made impassioned calls for men to defend the Republic, and tens of thousands of troops left Paris for the front lines. However, in their absence, Paris was left to its own devices.
Oh,
As
that's
enemy
not
troops
good.
Arrived in Verdun, the people of Paris feared that their crowded prisons were becoming a breeding ground for counter-revolutionary conspiracy. What would happen if the Prussians reached Paris and freed the aristocrats? Marat believed he knew what would happen. The aristocrats would enact their vengeance on the people.
Yeah,
Fearing
that is a
they had
valid
already
thought.
imprisoned,
That is a
mobs
valid thought.
descended on Paris's prisons. They broke in, and during the brutal September massacres, aristocrats, priests, and others were tried and executed on the spot. Even women and children weren't spared. With over 1,600 victims, word of the massacre spread across Europe. One British newspaper wondered, are these the rights of man? Is this the liberty of human nature? But there was still one man in particular that Robespierre and his radicals really wanted to see executed. Austria and Prussia pledged that after they defeated France, they'd return King Louis to the throne. Well, checkmate Austria and Prussia.
Yeah, well, they couldn't have
can't
that.
return a man to the throne if he's already dead. Citizen Louis Capet was put on trial for treason. Obviously, he was found guilty, but his punishment was less certain. Many moderates wanted to simply deport him, but Robespierre insisted the revolution could only live if the king was dead. A vote was held, and by just one vote,
considering the
Louis
sentiment,
was sentenced to the guillotine.
like considering the sentiment of like what would happen if if they actually lost against Austria and Prussia, I can certainly understand why they take this kind of course of action, because like they don't want this guy to take back power, especially after all of this.
If you don't mind, I'd like to say a few words first. Gentlemen, I am innocent of everything of which I am accused. Wait, you're too loud. They can't hear me. Hang on, I haven't finished yet. Wait, dude. Uncool. In her prison cell, Marie Antoinette heard the guns fire, signaling her husband's death. Before long, she would meet the same fate. Back on the war front, France defied all expectations and actually managed to push the enemy back. But then more countries joined the coalition against France, and it all went to pot again. What do we do?
Everybody is just
the masses.
Everybody is just going against France.
Law, with each regional department having to meet a certain quota of men for the army. However, not everyone was happy with this new law.
I mean, I can imagine.
Paris was definitely a hotbed for radical revolutionary fervor. Some of the regions outside of Paris weren't quite so keen on the revolution. Some were largely still conservative, still supported the church, and just didn't suffer from that much inequality before the revolution.
Yeah, because like a lot of the inequality, it was very much like it was like very much up and down on which regions of France, I guess. Based off like the previous video and like showing like where areas of low taxation versus areas of high taxation were. And you can certainly see some people just don't really have all that much of a problem with the previous system, which is totally valid. You know, if you don't feel personally slighted from it, even though it's overall a bad system. But at the same time, yeah, I could certainly see why they're not happy with conscription.
So as the revolution turned increasingly violent and anti-Christian, many were outraged. Now they were being conscripted to fight for the new republic they hated. That was the last straw. Counter-revolutionary uprisings erupted in a number of regions across France. Some would last for years, such as in the Northwest, where a large-scale uprising was led by the Owls. Why were they called the
Owls?
Because their leader was named Jean Owl. Why was he called Jean Owl? Possibly because he could do a really good impression of an owl. Really? That's what we're going with? Owls? Just because this guy can do an impression of one?
Yeah,
with it, Jean.
obviously.
Hoot, hoot. Yeah, okay, that's pretty good. The Schreinery uprising lasted all the way until 1800. In the
There's
summer
a
of
hootin' and
1793,
hollering.
the southern city of Toulon invited the British Navy over for some tea and crumpets. And then they asked if they'd possibly like to stay and occupy the city. Being an important naval base, this was a heavy blow to the Republic, who sent a relatively
It's like,
unknown
hey,
young
would y'all like
captain
some
by
tea
the
and
name of
crumpets?
Napoleon Bonaparte to help stage a siege of
there
the
he
city.
is.
Toulon was recaptured by France in the winter, and for his service, Napoleon was promoted to the rank of Brigadier General. The most infamous counter-revolution, however,
You know,
occurred
there's
in
the little
Vendée
general.
region. Throughout 1793, revolutionary forces clashed with the region's Catholic and Royal Army. The Republic defeated the counter-revolution through cruel pacification. In particular, General Jean-Baptiste Carrier committed brutal atrocities. In one instance, he had thousands of civilians, priests, women, and children tied to ships, which were then sunk. Carrier would later be found guilty of war crimes and executed.
God damn. Imagine how messed up you have to be tried and executed by the French revolutionary government for war crimes. Imagine how messed up you have to be.
Back in Paris, the government was still dominated by moderates. With the war going badly, revolts in the provinces, and the economy getting worse, it seemed the government just wasn't doing a very good job. Radicals' fear for the safety of the revolution
it do be
intensified,
happening like
and
that.
Marat even began calling for the moderates in the government to be executed.
Yeah, like, regardless of how you take care of and change governments, getting massive reforms like that takes a long time. Like, even with like presidencies in a democracy in the United States, if something in the United States goes really tits up like it is right now, like, you need at least like a president with a consistent back-to-back 2 terms and no lame duck run to even get like us back on track to fixing things. Because it's like, you can't just fix everything in just a single term. You need a 2-term and then another president coming in who has like similar plans and ideas, rather than just undoing everything the previous president did to kind of like right the ship. And unfortunately, we just haven't had that kind of situation since like the 90s. So we've just been going for like 25 years of this system. And America is really not doing great for it.
In return, the moderates called for the arrest of Marat. This led to a chain of events with the two sides in heated conflict. Robespierre
that's totally gonna go
insurrection and called on the people to arm themselves. It all ended on the 31st of May, 1793.
So there was an
with
insurrection
the
against the
surrounded
insurrectionists.
by radical sans-culottes and 29 moderate Girondin politicians arrested. From this moment
fantastic.
on, the moderates ceased to be a political force. Robespierre and his radicals would be in almost total control of the government. And this brings us to the story of a woman named Charlotte Corday. Charlotte lived in the northwest city of Caen, and like many in the area, was horrified at the rapid radicalization and increasing violence of the revolution. And the man she blamed more
that's
than
valid.
anyone was Jean-Paul Marat.
Well, I mean, he is basically writing like the extremist playbook here, you know, from his bathtub writing hole. So, you know, it's totally valid to be like upset with him. because he's the one that's writing all this stuff that everybody's getting all hoot and hollered about.
She wanted to bring peace back to France, and so she did something drastic. She traveled to Paris and told Marat she had a list of enemies for him to publish in his paper. Marat eagerly invited her in for a meeting. So where's that list of enemies you promised me? Here it is. Wait a minute. This isn't a list of enemies. It just says, yippee-ki-yay, mother... And just like that, Marat was no more.
Okay. Wow, they really got a full painting of this man in a bathtub right after he died.
Charlotte was
Goodness.
quickly arrested and sent to the guillotine. Her dream of restoring peace, however, died with her. Marat became a martyr. In temples of reason, symbols of the dead Marat became the new crucifix.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would think it was a good idea. Like, oh, the guy who is the one inspiring you to do all this stuff with his writing, let's just kill him in response to it. I'm sure that's going to go fantastically. I'm sure that's going to go fantastic. Yeah, it's never a good idea. You don't, because all you're going to do is martyr them.
In death, he became an even more powerful inspiration for the extreme levels of violence that were about to rip throughout the new republic.
Yeah,
that's right.
pretty
Here
much.
Comes the reign of terror.
Oh,
If you
Lord.
thought this
Here it
revolution
comes.
already sounds pretty violent, well, you ain't seen nothing yet, son.
Oh,
the
yeah.
radicals were now in control.
It's going to get
Believed
nutty
only
mode.
France surrounded by foreign enemies, but that within the masses, there were also plenty of internal ones too. Individuals not loyal to the revolution, conspiring to bring about its downfall. Robespierre
Yeah,
and the
I
rest
mean-
of the radical faction were having none of it.
Yeah, I mean, granted, they're probably not people, like, actually plotting the downfall of the revolution. They're probably just not really all that happy with how it's been carried out. But naturally, whenever you're dealing with a radical sect of revolutionaries who think everything should be quelled with bloodshed, naturally, they're not going to have the most calm response, I guess, so to speak.
A new committee of public safety was established with 12 members. Its purpose was to protect the new French Republic from its enemies, and it basically became
My
a
man got the
12-man
Buster
dictatorship
Sword
with
with no
Robespierre
materia
as its
slots.
leading voice. The Revolutionary Tribunal was also
At least stick
reinstated.
like a
A special
Kira
court
in
created
there
to streamline
and a
the process
Fyra.
of trying suspected enemies and handing out their death sentences. With these two new institutions, Robespierre wanted to scare France's enemies straight. In September,
I'm sure that worked out
1793,
just
it
fine.
was announced that
I'm
terror
sure.
would be the order of the day. In
Oh.
other words, fear had become official government policy.
Yeah, see, that's basically what's happening here now. And here in the United States, where pretty much everything is driven by fear and propaganda. It's like, oh, these people are coming into our country and they're killing you and they're doing all these nasty things to you, but I can fix it. It's like, all you're doing is creating a problem and promising a solution and then doing neither. Because it's like, yeah, there's a lot of bad things going on in the country, but stoking fear about people that make up less than like 5% of the actual population, less than even that, like 2%, if that, of the overall population of the country. Like, yeah, I'm sure that's a very smart idea, instead of actually just tackling the main crux of the problem, which is the extremely wealthy oligarchical societies that can pull the strings of everything, as we've seen from these certain itty-bitty files that you've been trying to cover up for the past year and a half.
And from then onwards, we enter into the period known as the Reign of Terror. Spies and secret police were everywhere, and watched the people closely. France's public had to be extremely careful what they said and how they behaved. Obviously, criticizing this new system, or the government, would quickly have you sent off to the guillotine. But that's not all.
Yep.
Even the most minor offense could have you tried before the Revolutionary Tribunal. Hello, Citizen Martin. Hello, Monsieur Dubois. Monsieur? Did I just hear you say Monsieur? That's the old style of address, my friend. To the guillotine! You know what? I didn't like it.
Couldn't have
but I
been
do feel
that
kinda bad for
extreme.
the king and his family. Oof, expressing sympathy for the royal family, are we? To the guillotine! 12 sous for a loaf of bread? That's way overpriced. To the guillotine! Man, this bread line is taking forever. To the guillotine! And you look like you're thinking anti-revolutionary thoughts. To the guillotine. Max, we're sending way too many people to the guillotine. To the guillotine! Chop, 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 chop. It was insane.
Jesus.
All across France, about 40,000 people were killed for suspected crimes against liberty. Let's say your neighbor
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it was, crimes of liberty. That is why you're just max executing your own citizens. I'm sure.
Don't stop mowing the lawn at 7 in the morning. Well, then all you gotta do is tell the government they've been talking smack about the revolution, and there's a good chance they'll end up in front of the Revolutionary Tribunal. Maybe they'll even be executed, taking a metaphorical load off your shoulders and a literal one off theirs. The most prominent
Yeah.
victim of the Reign of Terror was a certain Marie Antoinette.
Oh, she
who was
hasn't been
finally tried
executed
and
yet?
found guilty of treason in
What is with the different hair every time? Like, mm. The ATST hair over here. God damn.
1793. She expected she'd be brought to the guillotine in a royal carriage, fit for a queen. All the
Nope.
Republic could provide for her, however, was a wooden tumbrel. At 37 years old, the most hated woman in French history met her end on the 16th of October, 1793. Robespierre had
And they never
saved
had
the
an
revolution
heir
through
either,
terror.
did they?
Internal dissent was being suppressed. The food situation was no longer quite as bad. Even the French military had got its act together again and pummeled the Allies at the Battle of Fleurus. For
Oh.
Danton and his followers, the time was right to try to normalize the French Republic. Hey Robespierre, so we were thinking that since things are finally going better, maybe we should rein in the terror.
Yeah, that would be a good idea, because it's like, you're finally starting to stabilize things, so you'd think you'd want to kind of calm things down. Kind of get things a little normal again.
And while we're on it, we could possibly start taking it easier on the church, and also try to end this costly war.
To the guillotine?
Oh, crap.
Yep.
As time went on, Robespierre seemed to go, for lack of a better term, a bit mental. He was
A
hell-bent on
bit
creating
mental?
what he called a republic of virtue, and for
A
him,
bit?
this meant amping up the bloodshed even more. Throughout the spring and summer of 1794, executions reached an unprecedented level during a period known as the Great Terror. Even
The
those
Great
closest to him
Terror?
found their way to the guillotine if they dared oppose his
The Great
ideas and
Terror
actions,
in
and
the
he
Reign
began
of Terror.
alienating himself from the rest of the convention. He created a new deistic religion called the Cult of the Supreme Being, along with the new annual Festival of the Supreme Being.
So you're basically just ripping off Christianity after you made your country an atheistic one. Now you're just making like your own diet Christianity, or your your diet Abrahamic religion.
Man, I think Robespierre is really starting to lose it. He thinks he's a god or something. Nonsense. Sure, he's gone a little extreme, but he doesn't think he's a god.
I'm
My
sure.
children, bathe your immortal souls in the virtue of my republic. Okay, yeah, he's completely lost it.
He has got
Robespierre's
cuckoo for
ultimate
Cocoa
mistake,
Puffs.
however, came on July 26th when he made a speech
Oh?
to the National Convention in which he said this: I have in my hand a brand new list of enemies to be sent to the guillotine, and many of you are on this list, but I'm not going to tell you who yet. What do you think of that? I think we should send Robespierre to the guillotine first.
Oh,
All in favor? Oh, no. 2 days later, Robespierre became the final victim of the monstrous terror and paranoia he had created.
deserved. Deserved.
Many historical accounts of the revolution end here with the death of Robespierre and his terror. But the revolution officially continued for another 5 years until 1799. So what happened
Jeez.
between now and then? Well,
What did
after
happen?
the fall of Robespierre, a more moderate political group called the Thermidorians took control of the convention. They wanted to restore
Thermidorians.
stability
What
to the
does
government.
that mean?
Now, Robespierre's allies and other radicals who had fueled the terror themselves became the target of political suppression. Bourgeois street fighters took on the radical sans-culottes in the streets during a period named the White Terror. In 1795,
Oh, great.
the Thermidorians
Another
drafted a
terror.
new constitution and created a government called the Directory with the purpose of preventing power from being able to fall into the hands of a single individual again.
Oh, I'm
As
sure
this
that's
new
going to work
government was
her
being
out
established,
perfectly well.
royalists who wanted to bring the monarchy back to France saw this moment as an opportunity.
How are you supposed to bring back the monarchy when the monarchy is dead and didn't have an heir?
To strike. They staged an insurrection in Paris and battled with the National Guard in the streets. Luckily, one Napoleon Bonaparte happened to be in Paris at the time, and he took control of the situation, firing on the crowd and putting down the insurrection. From this moment
Yeah,
on, the
I
people
mean,
of Paris
Napoleon Bonaparte is quite famous for being one of, if not, the greatest generals in human history. So it's only natural he'd be able to put something like this down.
would never again be able to stage a popular uprising and lost their control over the revolution. For his actions, Napoleon became a general and was sent to take control of the French armies in Italy. The new directory remained a fairly ineffective government for the remainder of the revolution.
I'm
It was plagued
sure.
with corruption and
Yeah.
struggled to keep the economy afloat, and as a result, wasn't very popular. For the
So basically, you killed all the previous nobles just to replace them with more nobles. I'm sure that turns out great.
people of France, with the strict social customs of both royalist France and the terror gone, they didn't really know what to do with themselves. Men no longer removed their hats when talking to women. Different classes began intermingling, and a publication began circulating that looked a lot like a modern dating app.
Huh.
It was social anarchy. Outside of France,
Well,
the war continued.
interesting.
In 1795, France took the Netherlands, where they set up a puppet state. Then they negotiated both Prussia and Spain out of the war. The British attempted to land French
Jeez.
royalists in the west to reinforce rebellion, but that plan failed. In
Oh,
1796, the French planned a three-pronged attack with the aim of marching on Vienna and knocking Austria out of the war. The two northern armies
Yeah,
were defeated
I mean,
and forced to retreat.
knocking-
However, Napoleon in the south, with groundbreaking military strategy, won battle after battle.
Yeah,
after
Napoleon,
battle. He pushed the Austrians
not
out of
surprising
Italy
at all.
and began closing
Not
in on
surprising in the
Vienna.
slightest.
The Austrians freaked out, and Napoleon oversaw the signing of a peace treaty. He had almost single-handedly knocked Austria out of the war. And by the way, he was only 28, so maybe it's about time you moved out of your mom's basement.
And I'm 30, and I'm a rat on the internet. God damn, Napoleon.
Napoleon became a famed hero among the French people, but his aspirations were still higher. He briefly went off to Egypt and discovered a bunch of gnarly Egyptian stuff, but then the British destroyed his fleet and trapped his forces. Say, Napoleon, sir, you're not going to leave us here stuck in Egypt and return to France, are you? Nonsense, my boy. I would never dream of abandoning my loyal soldiers. Wow,
I'm
what's
sure.
that over there?
Deuces.
On his return to Paris, Napoleon found himself to be extremely popular, and the government extremely unpopular, and he started getting some power-hungry ideas. Conveniently, a politician named Emmanuel Joseph Sieyès.
Oh, that guy
approached
looks like
Napoleon
a
and said,
smug
"Hey,
piece
man,
of shit.
Since you're so popular, do you want to help me stage a coup?" Great idea. Let's stage a coup, and then I'll coup you. What? Napoleon, with the help of his politician brother, entered the government chamber, possibly got
well,
punched
how
in the
about that?
face, and finally his troops intimidated the council to dissolve the government and create a new constitution that basically made Napoleon a dictator. So there you have it, the French Revolution, born with the great promise of liberty and equality. The common people dared challenge an oppressive system that had existed for centuries. But before they knew it, they found liberty sidelined by terror, equality that possibly didn't quite hit the mark, and an absolute monarchy replaced by an absolute dictator. Napoleon began stabilizing French society. He restored the Catholic Church and got rid of that crazy calendar, among other things.
It
But he
do be
remained
like
ever
that.
Ambitious. He was France's first consul, but he slept soundly at night dreaming of being something even bigger. Napoleon's expansionist aspirations, combined with the ongoing conflict in Europe,
The brief
would
moments of
eventually lead
time
the
of
continent into a huge
the
conflict known today
Republic
as
of France, the Napoleonic Wars. Yep. So France went from a monarchy to about 10 years of very shaky, unstable revolutionary ideas to a dictatorship. Yeah, they did not capitalize on that very well. They did not do all that great whenever it came to, establishing some democracy. They did not. Well, next time, the next Oversimplified we'll be watching, before the Napoleonic Wars, we'll see if Russia does any better. But for now, let me know what you thought about the French Revolution down in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like on the video, and subscribe to the channel, and ding that bell so you know when I upload, and it helps me out in the algorithm. And as always, I will see you next time at the HQ. Bye-bye.